नमस्ते आप सबका सेशन नंबर 6 ऑफ 80 टॉक्स इसमें आप सबका स्वागत है. I welcome you all and thanks a lot for joining in this session today. Today we have Mr. Arjan Khambata. I'll introduce him with a couple of slides, and it's going to be a great session on art. He is a very well-known artist of Mumbai, and I'd like to introduce him with some slides. Just a second. So Arjan stays in B Tower, B2806. And this is the very beautiful creation of Arjan, which we see day in, day out in our own complex. It's all the old bicycles of the 80 complex. He has used them to create this great art, which he calls Sculpture. There are some other photographs of the same place. Arjan is also, some time back, a couple of years back, he had painted one of the walls in our restaurant. If you see, there is a horse painted there, which is again a beautiful creation of Arjan there. So he has contributed quite a lot with his free artistic services to our complex. And thanks a lot, Arjan, for that. So to introduce Arjan, Arjan is an architect by profession and a sculptor by choice. Encouraged by his parents, he started sculpting in his teens by scouting around his residence and in the city areas for looking for scrap metal and welding them into pieces of art, which he named as sculptures. And this is a word which has become synonymous with Arjan. So I'll not take much time on this, and I'll request now Arjan to start his session. Yeah, Arjan.
Okay. Am I audible, Sunil? Thank you.
Yes.
Fine. So, of course, I'll start right from the beginning, as we always do. So this journey started with me right after I finished my 10th standard. And if you realize that when summer vacation comes, then the children become a pain to hang around in the house. So they are sent off to summer classes here and there and everywhere. So I was also, me and my two sisters were sort of shifted off to an art class. And it just happened that that artist who was teaching us sketching and clay and etc. was doing it in a studio of a sculptor by the name of Adi Davirwala. Now, he had passed away at that time. I had never met him, but it was that space in which we were taught art, our first few steps of sculpture in terms of wood and a little bit of clay, etc., papier-mâché. I saw that there was a studio which was filled with incomplete pieces. There were welding machines, there were wood carving tools, there was actually the smell of metal being rusted. If you go to go down, you'll know what I'm talking about. There were incomplete sketches over there. And I think it was one of those moments where you realize that I think I would love to do this. You know, it was like actually fixated. It was, to me, it was entering a studio and work which was incomplete, and I felt I had to pick it up from there and start off. So although he was teaching, the art teacher was teaching me clay and etc., I just fell in love with the metal. And so what I did was I would go around, and I was 16, 17 then. I would go around scrap yards, I would go to garages, I would go to construction sites and pick up scraps of metal. At that time, if someone saw a kid picking up things and all that, no one would charge you for it. So I would keep on picking up these things and collect them at home. And at one point of time, it became such a big pile. I was in the Parsi colony then. I was called the local Bangarwala. And I became very famous there as the Bangarwala. And anyone who had anything to discard would drop things outside my doorstep and go away. And then the whole process started. I went to a welding shop in Mahim, where they make these grills and gates and the usual fabricators, because no one was willing to teach a kid welding, because it's supposed to be dangerous. It's not. It's supposed to be dangerous. So I sat there with the welders. after their boss had gone off home. This is at about 9 p.m. in the night. And from 9 to 11, I sat there and I learned the art of welding. And then I came back and I told my parents, look, I already have done this. Just get me a small welding transformer. And I had the scrap. So only the welding transformer and the scrap, that's how the journey started. I would keep on welding things together literally day in and day out. I mean, without paying too much attention to my studies. This is not telling the students not to do that, but it was just something that was so fascinating to me. I was in it up to my neck, literally. I would sit on the scrap pile, pick up one piece after the other and weld it and weld it and weld it day in and day out. And my friends would join me at the studio. It was a ground floor flat which I had there. And then what happened was very automatically the whole process started. So I was doing it as a hobby, not realizing that one day I would change it into a profession. Dad's an architect, he still practices, and I would get these pieces home, and his architect friends would come home, and that's how the word spread. And I got my first commission piece by architect Naushad Talati way back in '89. That's the seated Mughal outside the Jewel of India thing. And that's when I realized that, okay, fine, something like this has potential to make money. I told dad and mom that this is the only thing I want to do. They said, nothing doing. You can't keep on welding day in and day out. And so I joined architecture. So that's how architecture happened. And it was a very natural selection for me because both of them are 3D arts. Dad's an architect. So I just went into that. And that's why I say architect by profession, sculptor by choice. And I worked on architectural projects. I worked on interior projects. But nothing gives me as much pleasure as coming to the studio every day and sort of designing. And, so many times I hear people saying that young artists struggle. He's a struggler. This artist is trying to make his mark and he's struggling to get into the market and all that. I want to tell each and every person out there who wants to become an artist or is an artist that struggle never ends. It actually never ends. You have to come to the studio and challenge yourself every day. Otherwise, you'll make the same thing that you were doing 20, 30 years back. There are so many artists who, if one style is successful, like my sculptures, as you spoke about, Anil, the early sculptures, they work very well. I mean, I had my first show in '93, second one in '96, third in '99. And this was a time when I was only using scrap. It worked very well. I could have just sat doing that. But as someone who wants to experiment, the whole idea of only doing one thing just doesn't sort of come to mind. You always have to reinvent. And what gives me utmost pleasure is coming to the studio and literally saying as to what can I do today that I can be, sort of charged with. It's a cliche saying that the competition is not outside, it is within you, but it's true. You come here and you do something that challenges yourself and you go one step higher, not every week, but every day. Every day you need to do something that you've not done before. So, of course, I have lots to talk about. So that's how the journey started, very naturally. I have never, thankfully, gone with my works and my photographs to someone saying, look, this is what I do. Yeah, do you have something for me? It doesn't work like that. So they approach me, and whatever speed the work comes in is good. If you are flooded with work, good. If you're not flooded with work, very good, because that's the time you get to experiment and you try new materials. Perfectly okay. Like during the lockdown, the studio was closed. I was getting very antsy as to what the hell do I do? And I'm known not to sit in one place for even 5 minutes. I literally cannot even sit. I walk around, I jump around, I keep on doing things. And you'll see that in my sculptures also. So what happened was my daughter suggested, why don't you do classes online? And that's when I started my black and white doodling classes, which sort of just grew in their volume from small to big. And I thoroughly enjoyed them. I just took a break right now, but just to give you an idea, from the lockdown till now, more than 60 classes and literally more than 600 students. I counted 600 students were there in all my classes combined together, which just grew. And I kept on reinventing. I kept on reinventing techniques as to what do I do. Of course, I couldn't teach sculpture. I was teaching black and white pen and ink doodling, which surprisingly, and also, sorry, not surprisingly, was very therapeutic. People who were getting bored, people who were getting sick and tired of sitting at home, took to this, and they are still writing to me. The first group that I formed in the beginning of the lockdown still is active, and they still keep sending me drawings that this is what I do. And of course, I keep commenting on it and going forward. So I think that what I'm trying to say is that if you have a creative mind, if you have an inquisitive mind, there are less chances of you getting bored in life. You'll always find something or the other to do. So what I'll do is I'll take you outside, I'll walk you around, and of course I'll keep talking in the bargain. And it'll be we have a question and answer session at the end. But if you want to interject in the middle and ask me something, I'm most welcome to answer, because there are lots of things happening here. Let me take you out. I'm sitting in my cabin right now, which is the most comfortable space in the universe for me, literally. So even when I come from abroad, if my flight has landed in the morning, I send the bags home and I come here first. Literally, this is like my cocoon, and I call it my survival pod. So I just keep on jesting that if someone makes a hole in the doorway and keeps giving me food out here, I'll stay here for the rest of my life. So it's some place where I create, where I think, where I listen to my music, which is surprisingly at sometimes very loud volumes. And I watch my Netflix sometimes, and everything I do here. So let me take you outside to the main studio where things happen, and then I'll get you back in the cabin where things are more quieter. So I'll pick up the camera and I'll take you there. I've kept some exciting stuff out for you all, so you can have a look at that. I'm going to change the view of the camera to the front so that I can show you what I'm talking about, and then I'll change it back again. So we are leaving the cabin right now, and this is my space. Okay, so I'll just show you that. So what I do is I work on multiple pieces at the same time, because I just find that only applying your mind to only one piece doesn't work. So I do multiple pieces at the same time. So you'll find lots of stuff like this. For example, this is a discarded bronze Buddha head. I had done the whole sculpture, but then I found the head not to sort of to my liking. So I actually removed it and made another one. And this is a large horse in stainless steel. I call it the main men because there are these, all their hair is made up of these people out here. You see that? So I call it the main men. And another little horse here on which I am doing my doodling. So this is what I used to do the classes about, the black and white doodling as I'm talking about. So I've created a 3D space, and then I do this sort of thing. There are some figures lying out here and a couple of complete sculptures which are up here. This horse head. This is Mr. Bachchan. That's him standing over there. This is a sculpture I sort of made, and I got to know him better because of that. Couple of pieces out here. There's a man with an umbrella up there. Lots to look at. This is an experimental piece of a bird which I had done, and this is in Pauna. There are about 9 to 10 birds all sort of hanging from one another, and they're all suspended like, see that? So this is one of the sample pieces that I did for that. Coming out here, if you see, there's this large head and these people are pushing it, and I play around a lot with words. So this one is called moving ahead. It's actually the moving ahead, and it's called moving ahead. You see that? So I play around a lot with that, and I'll take you to the rest of the studio. So you can see this is the studio, and there's this combination of a dragonfly and a scorpion and a bike out here. Another horse head. Again, done with a lot of painting and all that. So these were created for a charity auction. There were 100 of them, and each artist painted on them, and then we sort of sold them for charity. I'll just take you here. This is Leonardo da Vinci in the corner here, lying here. That's a little bit of Elvis Presley. Einstein over here. So lots of things happening over here, but I'll show. Okay, this one. This one's called Learning to Fly. This is a sculpture made in steel with laser cut metal. Like I said, I keep on experimenting with a lot of new materials and technologies. There is no need to stick to your old traditional stuff just because it works. Keep on experimenting. And one thing I tell my students is, if there are 2 words I keep on telling them, it's experiment fearlessly, literally. Up here is a model of a 25-footer, which is hanging from a ceiling in Pimpri, Pune. It's about 3.5 tons, and it hangs from the ceiling. This is just the model that I made to get things a little more clearer. And out here is an interesting space. It's my admin cabin where all the paperwork happens. So what I did was, at a time before digital photography, we used to print everything, correct? So I had loads of photographs of my sculptures. So instead of putting Formica, I stuck all my photographs here. So out here, these are all some of my earlier works. Some of them, not all of them, they couldn't fit here. That's Salvador Dali. I'll just close in on a couple of them so you know. That's a running horse there. I do a lot of horses. Then
There's Mr. Bachchan sitting on the chair again. I've done 3 pieces on him. Okay. So, and there's this one's called a novel idea. There's a person sitting and reading there. And quite a lot of stuff. See, so I had a lot of space to do this. So I was very lucky. I had these filing cabinets. This one, as I say, I play around a lot with words. So this was inspired by the before and after ads and on slimming in midday. There are 2, one fat lady and one thin lady in a bathtub, and it's called Tub or Hub. So that's what I do. I play around a lot with, and this one was called Heavy Metal. It was one of the days. You see, this is all scrap metal. This is a court jester entirely made out of a taratu scale. So going back, I'm going to move out into the studio again. A lot of mess. It's always is a mess, but I know where everything is. So it's like a mess, you say, mapped out. So these are all the pieces which had started somewhere, have stopped being made. They're in process. And a lot of figures you'll see out here. Okay. And that's a abstract which I was working on. I'll just take you through and then I'll show you some interesting stuff, what I do as well. So everything needs to be in front. It needs to be open, because at any point of time you see something, you need to grasp it and sort of get it down. So these are, if you can see, these are the skeletons on which I do some of my frameworks out there. This is a board where I put the drawings of everything that's currently going on. And I just delivered a couple of pieces right now. So there's not much to see here, but I will show you one piece. So this, just to give you an idea, you see the guard here is a Spartan guard. This is going to be 15 feet tall. That's about 2 feet taller than my ceiling out here, which is 13 feet. So this fellow is going to be 15 feet tall, and he's going to be made in resin. He's going to be cast. So here, now I'll take you to what I've already started on, which is his head. You see that? His head has started here. So just to give you an idea, this is the size, if you see my hand. So that's only his head. And that's the torso. That's the torso. Clay hold on it. Okay. That's the large hand that you see there. And couple of his fists. This is a fist. If you see that, that's a fist. So it's a large one, and it's very misleading. This is the large shield that he's going to hold, and the bent hand for the spear. So as you can see, there's loads of stuff going on. A little bit of sorting going out here. One of the heads I'd done, which was called a dream. It's too messy right now, but I'll show you anyway since it's here. So basically, if you look down, there's this little fellow lying here who's dreaming, and this is what his dream is. It's been tied down by things, and his dream is sort of floating in the air, and he is in absolute ecstasy. Then I call this the 3 blind men. The blinds being, of course, the blinds on the window, and here they are. That's a wood carving. So taking you back, I'll show you a couple of the current pieces, welding talukar. And I'll show you one of my favorite ones in terms of wordplay. So if you this is taken from the Creation of Adam series from the Sistine Chapel. So what I've done is, instead of God and Adam, I've done Michelangelo. I've done Michael Jackson here, and Jennifer Lopez, and I got Michelangelo. So that's the name of the artist. So I play around a lot with this. I'll show you one little small one from a chess series. Of course, this you recognize is Mr. Bachchan on the KBC chair. And this little fellow here is a little pawn from the chess. You see that? Pawn banega crorepati. I do all this stuff. So just fun stories. You don't have an idea of how I weld. Just a couple of just tacks, just to give you an idea. So yeah, idhar camera. So I'll show you. So I'm moving here, just to give you an idea. I'll just stick a couple of pieces together so you can see. You're supposed to look at it. Okay. If you have it, you can sort of put a tag here. Okay. So you take the mask and you go closer. Okay. This is all. This is approximately with the gas torch sometimes. Just to give you an idea. Of course, it doesn't bend. So what we do, in the meantime, a couple of other things out here. So it started, okay, fine. So that's the gas torch. You see that? That's the gas torch out here. That's what I'm going to take and use right now.
Are you seeing it?
So, what I do is wait for it to get hot. लाल चलो थोड़ा पतला देखो जरा
लाल वाला थोड़ा टाइट कर सर, किसी का फोन आ गया।
रहने दो बंद करो कट करो
थोड़ा टाइट करो।
okay adjust करके दे दो I'll just take that, sorry, I'm just adjusting the flame a little, give me a moment. So lots of stuff lying around. Actually, if you see here, this I'll till the gas torch starts, I'll show you. This is a large chair that I made. It weighs a ton. It actually weighs a ton. This one out here. So I use heavy metal. So all this that you see, the twisted metal that is here, is made by gas heating and all that, you know. And coming to this was a large human I'd made from stainless steel rods, which were all welded together this way. And I'd go back to the torch. Jaldi lo. So if you can see, it's getting red hot here. Gets red hot. I can use this for cutting as well as bending. So what I do is, after, so I'm like a surgeon when I'm working. I need my tools here. So I have these fellows who help me. You see that? Become red hot. So what I do is, I can then very easily you see, I can start bending it. This was little more heat. Once I do that, I can go this way. And then I can start twisting and turning it the way I want. You see the bend here? Okay. Here. You can also sometimes actually cut the metal.
लाल और कम करना पड़ेगा।
हाँ?
हाँ, लाल थोड़ा तेज करना पड़ेगा। अभी ऑक्सीजन देना पड़ेगा। हाँ हाँ।
Okay, I'll show this to you later. There's some problem with the gas. Okay. बंद करो. Sorry, little malfunction with the torch over there, but I'll come back to this. So let me take you inside the cabin where I said I generally am working on my creative stuff, all sketches and all that happens today. So I told you I play around a lot with words. I have these large fans for cooling the studio. And I put this little tag over here. It's just I put it in one of my shows. And coming back to my cabin now. Okay, so this is where I sit when I'm doing my sketches and all that. I've made this as much as possible soundproof as possible. And that's my table. It's a large table. It's 8 by 5. And if you see, these are the sketches I'm working on right now, 4 projects. So I keep them open because I keep on developing them as I go along. Out here. Then, of course, there's this big baby elephant which someone wants. It's about 8 feet tall. It'll be made in stainless steel, faceted sort of things. This one is for Hoshiarpur, Punjab. It's for the saints of Hoshiarpur. There are about 4 of them this way. Acrobats. I love dynamic human figures. So I keep working. That's a Ganesha. Probably in wood carved and all that. These are all proposals. This is not, and of course, running horses. And this particular one is for a garden. It's basically a couple opening a cage and all the birds flying out. Couple of dancers here again. If you see that. One more Ganesha. One bull here. And of course, my cantilevered sculptures, which I love doing, which are sort of weighted on one side and then they fly open here. You know? And I'll show you my wall. Basically, only okay. This out here, I've got small collectible stuff. Everything has a little story. It's just not collected just like that. Everything has got some story or the other. This little lock that you see here, it's a combination lock which is about, let's say, what, 80 years old or something like that. And it belonged to my grandfather. That's one more. It's not a grandfather's clock, but it's my grandfather's clock. It's put out here. And then what I do is I from my shows, I keep on sort of, this was an experiment which a photographer had done with my sculptures, shadows of my sculptures. He had taken these models and he had sort of experimented with the shadows of my sculptures. This is from Mr. Bachchan. This is one of his pieces. One of my early shows, 2004, called Fresh. This is my first show in 93. I look like that, actually. The one at the bottom, or not this one. That's me. So, so this is all metal work. This is one of my first pieces that I did in metal. Aspasia, I call it it's the Persian horse. Homeward bound Mexicans, chess players, and a little pygmy I created from a castor. Coming to some later shows. This was called I'm Only Human. And one of my favorite pieces from that was this one. So as an artist, you're able to sort of visualize, put sort of visuals to words. So this one was 2 people looking away from each other, but connected. It was called Thinking on the Same Wavelength. It was called Thinking on the Same Wavelength. That's what it was. This one you see here, it was called The Naughty Couple, Knotty. So a lot of stuff like that. This one was another funny one. It's 2 backsides on a bench. It's called Aspas. Then I've got the Emerge series where there were very powerful humans like this. See that? Copper and the man emerging from the cocoon and flying sort of figures like this. Some more pieces out here. This one's in Singapore. It's called Yaz, the sun god. This one's at TCS, that's the Tata consultancy. The rhino, which I did for SIAT ages back, and a couple of the frogs, which I did for Sahara. All sort of playfully playing around. This one, of course, is my experiments with the laser cut steel. I showed you one outside and what I did out there. And if you look above, there's something printed on my ceiling. That's my library. Okay. That's my library. That's my ladder, which is, of course, designed by me. So it doesn't look like a normal ladder, but it's actually a ladder which works and it slides this way along the, those are all my books up there. And my entrance door, which is made from beaten stainless steel. Okay. What was I showing you? Okay, sorry. Coming to 1 minute. I was showing you something and I got distracted. Okay. So basically, this is Mr. Davirwala, whose studio I started working in, but I never met him. Can you believe that? I work with all his everything that was given to me by his wife and his daughter. but I never met him. So these are some of my books which are small and my favorite ones. This one, people say I was inspired by this. It's called Dali's Mustache. There's actually a book only on Dali's mustache. It's hilarious. I'll post it sometime soon. And basically, it's got I'll just show you one listing from it because it's too interesting. It's got question answers. Okay, it's got questions put by a photographer. As usual, I don't follow you. What do you mean? And he says, like 2 erect sentries, my mustache defends the entrance to my real self. So every question has been answered by his mustache. He says, isn't your mustache impractical, especially when you travel? He says, no problem. It's too naughty for me. So stuff like that. So, I mean, so it is basically another thing coming to it. If the children are listening, there's one thing which I keep on telling my students. Every point of time, we keep on telling our children, grow up, grow up, grow up. Please tell them not to grow up. Seriously. I think we really don't need to grow up. We literally need to go back to our childish selves if we actually want to sort of be happy and comfortable. This, of course, like I said, is my work process going on right now. This is something I fit in Delhi recently. I just did a sculpture of Meher Baba also. Just fitted yesterday. I don't have an image of that yet, but just to give you an idea. And this is a model of the bull in Worli, this 15-footer bull. So when the client asked me, they said, make a, they wanted me to make a computer diagram of the whole thing. I'm very bad at computers. I worked in an age where I work only with pencils and all that. So I actually sat down and I carved this bull exactly the way it's going to come into scale. And now he stands in, of course, Worli, of course, about 15 feet. So here also the idea was, my Siri keeps on talking to me on my watch, sorry. So what I do is I started off with the lifelike image of the bull back there, going to the machine age, like the creation of the Titanic, where there were rivets and all that, to the computer age, where there were all these straight lines and facets and all that. So it actually showed the development of the IndusInd Bank through time, and of course, all my pens and all that, I've got hundreds more. So I keep on sketching like this. Then I'll show you what else I do. My pen and inks. I'm going to take you to my pen and inks, some of them which I keep on experimenting with. Yeah. So these are my drawings which I do with pen and ink. To me, this is so different from what I do outside, because this is something I can do in an AC room, quiet, nice, with music and all that, Outside, it's all grungy and heaty and all that. And I keep on expanding on it little by little by little, trying to sort of figure out the kind of curves. See that? Small pen stipples and all that. They take me days to make, but I just keep on going at it. It puts me in a different sort of a speed here. This is one of my favorite ones. If you see here, the detailing here, you see that? All done with different thicknesses of pens and all that. Okay. So basically, the idea is, if you understand what I'm saying, it's to keep on experimenting, keep on trying out new things, new materials, etc. So you kill the boredom that way. This, of course, I make a lot of lists. Okay, I write down a lot of stuff. So if you can see, everything is very well put out here. Somehow people think that artists are very light-headed, fruity, and they don't remember anything, and etc. etc. But I think we are living in an age where you need to sort of actually sort of pin things down, and that is, I think, important. So coming back to myself, I'm going to change the camera again. So at this point, of course, I know I've sped through it. It's 11:38 right now. But if there are any questions at this point, I can then sort of talk further on it also. So I would love to hear from you if you have any questions at this point, because then I can move forward with something specific that you want to know about. Anil, is that okay?
Yeah, that's perfectly okay. So I think Mr. Kasliwal raised his hand. So
Yes.
Anybody wants to, interject with any question right now, you can just raise your hand and ask, please. Yeah, Mr. Kasliwal.
Just a sec. Let me come on my, yeah. So very fascinating story and very fascinating presentation. But one thing which has not come out in this presentation is the wonderful work done by Arjan Khambata for Jai Vakil Foundation Institute, which is serving the cause of intellectually disabled persons. 750 persons are directly, and 15,000 children all over Maharashtra. So in the year 2 years back, we had our 75 years celebration. And we thought that we will raise some money from at least 25% at around 7 lakh rupees per person. So I do not know how it come out, whether it was just because we both work as a volunteer at Jai Vakil Foundation. Arjan is found there many times, and I go there every day. So I'm taking a little bit longer time, but the story must be told. So we decided to raise 25 places of 11 lakh rupees each from our donors. So we approached Arjan, and he created a sculpture of a sitting boy depicting very innocent image of intellectually disabled children. And what from 25 it has happened that it went up to 101. And we raised almost 11 crore rupees that process. And its story culminated in a big function in Taj, where all 101 people came. But another thing is this: all these 101 sculptures were painted by 85 painters all over the country, and we gave them freedom to paint in their own way. So, and now these 101 sculptures are all over Bombay in different, whether it is Tata's or whether it is Piramal's or whether it is Ambani. And we raised almost 10 crore rupees, more than that, 10 crore rupees out of that. And everything has been done pro bono by Arjan. So this I must tell, and I will like Arjan to say something about that.
Sure.
So show the picture of those sitting boys.
Sure. I'll do that. So I'll just change the camera back again. So it was a brilliant thing for me. I take a part in a lot of charity events, but this time I said, let me do it myself. So this was the first one which I sort of handled. And with my good fortune of knowing a lot of artists in India, having worked so many years, when I approached them, they readily said yes. And each one painted their own rendition. I've got a copy of the catalog here, and I have to show you a couple of images from that. So this is the one. It's called Champions of Change. It just stays on my table here because it's something which is very meaningful to me. I just love it. So this is Archana, the principal of the school. And if you see here, the sculpture was the same, but every artist did their own rendition. And like we started from 25, we had no idea that the response would be such that we would go to 101. And 101 sold pieces, not 101 just staying there, 101 sold pieces. So if you see, I also painted a couple of them, and each and every one was different, and it looked absolutely stunning in the gallery together. This was in Tau Art Gallery. They were all put together, if you can see that. So what I did was I insisted that we also approach artists who are not very big, or I didn't want only big names. I wanted some newcomers as well, who I knew would be doing excellent work, and it just worked phenomenally. Just that if 101 sold, it's a success, so stuff like that. So we've also done this with horses before. I mean, since I have the catalog here, I'm just going to show it to you. But this was not managed by me, but just to give you an idea. So we did horses this way once. See that? All different renditions of horses, same sculpture, different artists. So I've been taking part in a lot of these before. So this time when Jai Vakil approached me, I said, let me handle it myself and see how we sort of come out of it. And it worked very well. It really worked very well. And I thank all the artists for that. Basically, they are the ones who actually gave all their work and time and devotion and did everything together, Thank you, Mr. Kasliwal. Thank you.
Thank you, Arjan, for doing this. And our institute, which have been struggling to pay the salary, is now have 11 as a corpus, purely because of your contribution. So thank you.
Thank you.
For that.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you.
So Arjan, if you cover this topic,
Yes.
whenever you are starting a new sculpture or a new
Yes.
idea, how does the process start? How do you develop it? A bit on that. It's an artistic creation process.
Sure.
How do you go
Sure.
about it?
So basically, I think, of course, So number one, my main, so I mean, right now the galleries are not open, so I'm not doing shows on my own. So if I'm doing my own show, then I'm just sitting out and creating whatever idea comes to mind. I sometimes don't even sketch it out or draw it. I directly start with the metal, because when you're doing it for your own show, there is no end buyer in mind. You're just creating what you feel like and building up a collection. Okay, so that works one. But 98% of my work is commission work, where the first thing I'm done is I'm called by the architect or the builder or the designer or whatever you call it, and shown a space. Okay, I am shown the space, and I give sketches. So everything that you see on the table here right now is done that way. So for example, this one, let's talk of one particular one. For example, this one. Now this one, I was shown drawings of a large office building for pumps. This place manufactures pumps. So now I said, why not we do something? So if you see here, I've drawn something like the heart, which I find is the most valuable pump in the world. And the pump normally pulls. So there's a human over here who is pulling. And then of course, a lot of items which I studied as would go in a pump. There's water, there's earth here. The pumps are inserting the roots here to pull out stuff. So every work, how you say, you have to give it a lot of thought as to who the client is, whether it's going in a residence or a hotel or a corporate office, and then accordingly sketch, then accordingly think of the materials. For example, if I am thinking of a corporate sculpture, I would think of steel, I would think of sharp edges, etc. But if I'm thinking of a residence, I will not do that. I will stick to copper, I will stick to wood, I will stick to softer materials that are more cozy, and sort of go with the warmth of the house and sort of depict that, instead of doing something in cold steel, you know. So coming to, again, let's say this particular one, this sculpture here. So this is for a hotel lobby. Now I have planned to do these images in copper. Okay, and it's got a very jagged sort of a base out there, which will be in wood. So copper and wood already established that warmth sort of a thing. And you see the twirls behind. Now those actually is something which is going to be 5 or 6 feet behind in reflective steel. So when you pass before this sculpture, the reflections work, and it sort of gives you some sort of a motion in terms of the way it is designed. So every piece is different. Believe me, like if someone asks me that I need something from my home, do you have anything ready? And I show them a couple of pieces which are left over from the show or something like that. And 99% they will not pick up from that. It always has to do with something very personal. It could be just a person sitting on an office chair and reading. I'm telling you this because I've been told that. He said, I want a sculpture for my dad. He sits and reads. So I put him on a small beanbag with a carpet and stuff like that, you know, very comfortable. He said, no, he sits on a proper office chair and reads. So I had to then sort of again turn it to that. So every piece is intentionally customized to the particular client. I'll give you an idea now. There's one more drawing which I'm doing just to give you an idea, since I have it in front of me. This is for a residence again. They wanted something with water. So I did this. So this is going to be in cast aluminum, which will be shiny like water. Okay. And these are just rocks, which are actually going to be rocks from which this flows. And it's completely freestanding. There's nothing supporting it at all. So again, this was one of the things that I did with the water. I saw the space. The space is like this. Okay. To give you an idea, there's an onyx wall. And this is what the architect had drawn, but I didn't go with this. So I said, why don't we do something like this? So again, so many times you take a brief from the client, you develop it further. If you think that they're going wrong, it is definitely your job as an artist to tell them that, look, this will not work here, but do something different. But then you have to be very confident in what you show in terms of a sketch to be able to tell them that this would look better than this. So go with something like this, you know? So that's how it works. And of course, once the sketch is approved, then comes the difficult part, which is the estimate and the budget, which also unfortunately plays a big role in the whole thing. And so we go like that. So there's so many times when clients don't realize the cost of art, the value of the art. So what I do is I very subtly give them an idea of what pieces would cost like and all that. So they know the ballpark as to what range they are thinking in. And then of course we move ahead, you know. So it's a good thing to give an idea to the client right from the beginning. There are some hotels which give out sculptures and artworks to be made, and they do it very intelligently. They mark out the space, they mark out the size, and they also give you a maximum cost for that sculpture. So immediately what you do is, it sounds very commercial, but it's not. Immediately you think the materials and the design that would fit in that, and then you do the best within that. Sometimes, and most times, limitations put by clients helps you come to the design faster. Instead of the client telling you, do whatever you want. When there are limitations, when there are ideas given by the client, you arrive at the solution a little faster. That's the way it works. Of course, then, of course, the main making of the sculpture and installing and all that, you know?
Yeah, right. Fantastic. So, Arjan, I'll just take 2 minutes to introduce
Yes.
our next session speaker, and then
Yes.
I'll come back to you and to audience for a further Q&A and comments.
Sure.
Just a second. So, I'll for next session on 3rd of October, we will have Mr. Arun Kedia, who will be talking to us about his pharma firm, and I'll just project the slides. So Arun is here in the session right now. I'll just introduce him, and I'll request him to speak a bit about his next session for a minute. Yeah, he's Mr. Arun Kedia. He stays in D Tower, D4501. This is a news item which appeared in April 21. And, you know, all of us, this has been the COVID period, and this was a great news item to read, especially from our co-resident and his firm. VAV Life Sciences Inc.'s deal to supply synthetic phospholipids for RNA-based COVID-19 vaccines. So VAV Life Sciences is the only Indian company whose lipids will be used in this technology-based vaccines. Phospholipids are crucial biomolecules used in manufacturing of these RNA-based COVID-19 vaccines. So Arun is a chemical engineer by education, and he's an entrepreneur. He set up this company called VAV Group way back in 2003 with a modest initial capital. And today VAV is recognized as a significant player in global phospholipid market with a GMP approved manufacturing facility in Ratnagiri, India. VAV is a pioneer for natural and synthetic phospholipids in the Indian market. He's an active contributor in various reference books, and he has been a member of the core research group of relating to the phospholipids area. He's a foodie and has a great sense of humor. His wife Savita and his kids Pranav and Rachita, they stay in D Tower. So with this, I'll request Arun to speak a bit about the next session, please. Arun, if you can switch on.
Anil, am I audible?
Yeah, you are audible. Yes.
Perfect. So my topic will be targeted drug delivery and quick introduction. So if we have a stadium full of spectators and 5 terrorists happen to walk into the stadium and they are dispersed, how do we deal with them? So we shall not bomb the stadium. We shall use snipers. That's targeted drug delivery. Happy to talk about it more in the next session.
Yeah. So thanks, Arun. I think it will be a great session, especially in the times in which we are, and the way you think, you know, nanotechnology can change the medicine delivery going forward. So look forward to this session. So with that, I'll come back to Arjan, and I'll request all the participants to put their comments, question, answer, either on chat box or if they want to speak directly as well.
Mr. Anil, can I say I'm Shivanandan?
Yeah, Mr. Shivanandan, please.
Yeah. Good morning to everyone. Mr. Arjun Kampada, this is a fascinating, fascinating thing you told. Hands off to you.
Thank you.
I don't think many of us can even come to 1,000th of what creativity you have done. I cannot question you or ask you a question, but amazing, amazing. We never knew
Thank you.
that one such great Salvador Dali copy is with us. Accelerating session. Thank you so much. Thank you. That's it. I can only admire you. I can't ask you a question.
Thank you. Thank you.
Arjun, my question is, are you also going to have a book about your mustache someday?
Hopefully. I
Yeah,
start documenting it from today.
Yeah, mustache looks like Salvador Dali. Are you trying to put like Dali, Salvador Dali only mustache? Your mustache also? They are pointed already.
Thank you.
Arzan, I loved your wit, especially all the captions, the tub or rub, and the ass pass, and amazing. I'm going to run through this again and see those, the captions once again.
Sure.
Fantastic.
Neil, can I ask something?
Can I ask?
Yeah, please go ahead one by one. Please, yeah.
I really don't want to ask. I'm not fit enough to ask you anything, but I want to bless you. Your story is so inspiring.
Thank you.
I want to request you to address children.
Yes.
Yeah.
Sure.
Like a whole lot of children should hear your story. It's so inspiring.
Sure.
So
Thank you.
Bless you.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah, Anil, I also myself, what a fascinating story about Rajan, and it's really so interesting. So I had also a similar suggestion that it would be so interesting for children if they can visit his workshop and his.
Oh yes, definitely.
That will be really very. I am myself, of course, a senior citizen. I am myself being an engineer, seeing his welding and arc welding and the gas welding. I myself is very much tempted to visit his studio.
Thank you.
Especially for children, it will be very, very informative, and they will also pick up how interesting artwork can be.
Yes.
So that is only my one suggestion.
Yes, I do a lot of these things, sir. I mean, pre-COVID times, a lot of schools get their children here.
Yeah.
Mostly NGOs and all that. They come here to have a look and all that. And if Ashok Tower is going to organize things after the COVID situation is very safe, then I'm most willing to get you all here anytime.
Anytime, Arzan, just let us know whenever you want to. Let me know whenever you want to organize anything.
Sure.
So I had two questions. Where is your workshop? And the second is, have you considered working with waste plastic?
Oh yes, I have. I have worked with waste plastic 3 times, thrice in fact. Before there was once we did a huge walkthrough like a maze using old Bisleri and your Aquafina bottles and all that. A huge structure covering about 20 feet by 10 feet through which people walk through, and there were lights and all that. But my most favorite one that I did was it was a huge Ravana that I did 3 years back maybe. This was standing on Carter Road, made from all old jerry cans and plastic and everything together, basically showing that how waste material could be used. And fortunately about, let's say about 250 kilos of plastic went into that 15-footer Ravana, and it's put in one of the MTV offices today.
Nice. And where's your workshop?
Sivri in very close to the Sivri Court and Dosti Flamingos. So it's like 8-minute drive from home.
Is it in Navbharat state? So
next to Navbharat, correct.
I think our little boy Aryan wants to ask you a question.
Sure.
So can you give me some tips on how you draw so well?
Okay, I'll actually tell you. Okay. Number 1, even if you draw one drawing a day. Okay, now there's this thing. Now you have to decide whether you want to draw or you want to sketch. I would say start with sketching. Sketching means very quick, rapid strokes of the pencil. You see that? It's already in my hand. I constantly keep doing that. Very rapid, quick strokes of whatever you see in front of you. It need not even be exactly the same. Just take a small little notebook like this, which you can carry around, and scribble in it and use that paper for multiple scratches and just lines that you see in front of you. It could be a tree, it could be a toy, it could be a part of your room. Just keep on doing that and see how you improve, and slowly your lines and everything will become so proper, and you'll be able to put things in proportion, put things in sketches and all that, and you'll come up to my level or even better. I can guarantee you that. Your name is Aryan, no?
Yes.
Aryan, you're only one letter off. I am ARZAN, you are ARYAN. Not bad. You'll reach there pretty soon. Okay, Aryan, is that okay?
Thank you. Thank you.
Welcome. Anyone else?
Mr. Kamal spoke about your creations. I'm curious about the inputs. What do you read? What do you see for stoking your creativity?
Basically, let me put it this way. I see everything. As an artist, you're supposed to be, I think, tremendously observant. And I think even I was not in that stuff and all that. And I think the key is to observe everything around you. So there's this fallacy that you only get ideas. A lot of people ask me, do you go, when you go on a holiday and you sit down in the quiet, whatever, on the beach or under a tree, and that's when you get your ideas? Nothing. Ideas can come in your tremendous chaos also. It is all about observing things. And when I'm going through the streets of Bombay, I still don't look into my phone. Literally, I look outside because there's so many things to see. Someone pushing a hatgari, a little man sitting in the corner feeding a dog, someone standing in the balcony. There are so many visuals to look around. I keep on telling our children, put that damn phone away and look outside. There is an actual world which is just passing you by, but then you're not looking at it, you know. And I mean, I get this so many times when I go for a drive. I still behave like a small kid. I get excited when I see a plane flying still. I mean, literally, people think I'm mad, but when a plane takes off, I'm looking at it and I'm showing people. So it is basically, I think, to observe. It's a very good question. I see everything, literally see everything, notice everything, photograph everything. And I mean, whoever is on Instagram, if you see my Arzan Khambata, that is where I keep my photographs. So there are these quirky titles I give it and all that. My own work I post under Arzan Studio. So I keep on noticing things and I keep on sort of giving them names and linking them to words and putting it together. So that is tremendous, how you say, it's a high for me to notice something and to sort of show it to someone and to create something from it. And ideas, just because you've been abroad to a place and you come back, will just come out suddenly from you. It collects in your mind, and sometime or the other, maybe 10 years later, something strikes and you say, oh my God, you know, this is like very similar, or something that has been derived from something that I'd seen and I have used it there. So very unconsciously, never see something and consciously try to depict it. Let things sort of, how you say, boil in that soup that you have up here and then come out naturally, you know.
Arzan, this is Harish Bhatt here. Can I ask you a question?
Harish, hi Harish. Yes.
Well, what a fascinating presentation. My mother and I both of us watched it over the last month.
Thank you.
And my question is, do you run like writer's block? Do you run into a sculptor's block sometimes? And what do you do to get out of it?
Okay, so the best thing to do when you don't get ideas is to move away from it. Don't try. Literally don't try. If you're stopped somewhere for ideas, drop everything and change your environment and go away somewhere. And don't even think about it. So right now, if you see the amount of drawings I'm doing, if I get stuck, the thing is to put my pencil down, wrap up for the day, come out on the podium, take a walk with music, or just go off somewhere. Completely change your environment. Stop thinking about it. Give the mind a break, because it actually requires that. Let everything that is in there ferment a little more, and then see it with a new perspective. You know, I think that's what I do.
Okay, thank you very much. Wonderful advice. Thank you.
So I think we have a couple of hands raised, Arjan. So I'll go one by one.
Yeah.
Parveen?
Yes, thank you. Firstly, thanks, Arzan. I think it's been such an inspiring session. I actually wanted to know about, from your point of view, what's been the most
would you like to switch on your video if you don't mind? So anybody who's asking question, please switch on your videos if it's okay, if it's convenient.
Sure, it's just a bit of a mess today.
Okay,
so
no problem.
Just
Please go ahead.
me on that. Arzan, I wanted to know what piece from your creative point of view has been extremely difficult and inspiring and challenging to implement?
There are a couple of pieces like that. So in 96, I like I said, I keep on, I love challenging myself, doing difficult things. And that's what drives you. You know, I mean, anyone can do simple things. It's okay. I mean, that is nothing that fires you sort of that way. So the more difficult it is, the more sort of engaging it is, the more challenging it is. So to me, there was this one piece which I did in 1996, which was, if you saw it, it was a tall abstract which had metal and wood parts flying around. Okay. And when you see it, it's just a complete abstract that was floating around. And what you had to do was, you had to look at it through a peephole, and then suddenly everything would sort of merge together and the figure of the crucifix appeared, So it was basically the theory of depth of vision. If you close one eye, you destroy your depth of vision. So everything that is there through the peephole gathers as one image and comes out as one. So that was very fascinating for me, because you couldn't make out what it was. And when the viewers saw through the pinhole, suddenly the image appeared, and that was good. It was a good boost for me also. So that was one of the most difficult ones I've done.
Thank you. That's really nice to you. I'll look up the piece.
Thank you.
Yeah, Nikita.
Hi, everyone. Irzan, thank you so much for the session. I really loved your
Thank
work.
you.
And my question is, do you ever get the artist mental block?
Oh, yeah.
And if you do, how do you, overcome it?
I just answered that. So basically, move away, complete your environment, stop thinking about that, completely move away, and sort of just imagine you're in another world and all that, and come back the next day, preferably the next day, and look at it with a fresh eye, and then things will appear. Totally move away, So same thing I do with puzzles. When I'm solving puzzles and I get stuck, I put the whole puzzle away, pack it off, and then you come back the next day and suddenly things work. Your mind needs rest basically, and your mind needs a change of environment as well. So it has to be that way. Then it'll be the optimum sort of thing. That's the maximum way you'll be able to use your imagination and everything.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah, then we have Alaknanda.
Hi. Hello, Mr. Khambara. I loved your presentation. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
And my question was that you mentioned in your presentation previously 2-3 times that people have said you show them planes flying, and then people have said that it ridiculed you basically. So how have you been able to overcome that? Have you been ever affected by people's opinions, or how have you managed that?
Not much. I mean, there's nothing drastic. I mean, so a person laughs at you, at the most a friend laughs at you, you just brush it off and move ahead. So basically, there are two things. I think number one, it all depends how much time you want at your have at your hand to react. Okay. There are sometimes people react to things which are not worth reacting, and I only think it is a sheer case of having a lot of time on your hands. I'd rather do something else and move on, other than sort of stick to that and keep on thinking about something that bothers me. So having saying that, I'm not saying things don't bother me, but if you're busy enough, if you've got things to do, if you've got exciting things to do, you'll forget all the rubbish and you'll move on to better pastures sort of immediately. So just keep yourself very, very occupied with a lot of stuff around you.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else?
Nandini, you want to ask? Yeah.
Yes. Hi, sir. So I saw your work and I was kind of curious of why you work with horse sculptures a lot. It kind of caught my eye. So
I do a lot of horse sculptures. You're right. There are a lot more than what you see out here. I just find it. I think it's one of the most awesome animals that is there around, and just the way the hair flies when it's running, the musculature, the whole grace of the body, everything. It denotes so many things to me more than a horse. It denotes power. It denotes grace. It denotes speed. It denotes movement. And I think that's why I'm very fascinated with it. I think there are very few animals who get that kind of grace and motion as a horse. So that's why I'm very fascinated with the horse,
yeah, okay, thanks.
So thanks, Arjan. I think there are many more questions. And so thanks a lot.
Anil, can I?
Yeah, ma'am. Please go ahead.
I'm a student of Vedanta
Okay.
And in Vedanta, we say that choose a career according to your swadharma. That is the passion that you have. And you're a living example of that. They said if you can make your swadharma your career, you will be energetic and enthused about it all your life.
Correct.
So,
Yes.
So I can see that happening here, because when parents came to me asking me what their children's, which career they should choose, and I always said that look at the swadharma of the child and let the child choose a career matching the swadharma.
True. Absolutely.
But after hearing you, I'm so convinced that that is the right thing to do.
Yes.
And our Vedanta, our scriptures say that, which are so old. And
True. True. Absolutely agree with you. Absolutely agree with you. Thank you. Thank you.
So thanks a lot, Arjan.
Thanks a lot, Arjan, for your
Thank you.
presentation, yeah.
Thank you.
Thanks a lot. Wonderful. Wonderful. Thank you.
What a wonderful
It was an absolutely
Thank you so much.
absolutely fascinating studio tour, and knowing about you. I have seen you so many times in the campus and know a bit about your art from whatever you have done in the complex. But seeing so much diversity and depth of work which you have done is amazing. Actually,
Yes.
it was really
Thank you.
great to know, Arjan, and thanks a lot for
Thank you
taking
so
time
much.
out and taking us around the studio. And I thank all the participants. Thank you very much. It was a very active interaction by all of you. And see you on the 3rd of October at 11 a.m.
Thank you so much,
Anil,
Arjan. Thank you once
before you
again.
wrap
Thank you,
up,
everyone. Bye-bye.
Thank you, Anil. Thank you for organizing
Thank you.
this. This is fantastic.
thank you.
Thank you. This was wonderful.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye. Okay.